Hi, let's talk about shading. Shading is a simple technique you can use to create a 3D effect on just about any object. Let's take this little tomato as an example. I've chosen a base color that's not too bright or too dark, to allow for brighter and darker areas to be drawn in. Next, I need to decide where the light is coming from. Let's say it's coming from the top left. That means the areas facing the light will be brighter, while the areas facing away from the light will be darker. I'm going to use the watercolor brush because it gives me the softness I'd like to see in my coloring. I'm going to create a brighter area facing the light. This is called a highlight. On the part of the tomato that's facing away from the light, I'll create a shadow. There you go. We've created a nice 3D effect in a few simple steps. If we want to take our shading to the next level, we need to understand that the tomato is essentially a sphere. Let's go and break down the different areas created by light falling onto the sphere. The midtones are parts that are not hit by direct light or hiding in the shadow, essentially where our base color is visible. The highlight we already covered. It marks the area that is most hit by the main light. In addition to that, we also have light from the surrounding area reflecting onto the sphere. This is called reflected light. The shadow we drew on the opposite side of the light source is called the form shadow. This is essentially the shadow that the sphere is throwing onto itself. Notice that it's also casting a shadow onto the floor. This is called the cast shadow. And darker part directly beneath where light can't reach is called the occlusion shadow. Now, it's absolutely okay not to aim for realism when we're shading, but if you do want to make things look realistic, it always helps to look at a reference photo. In this photo of a tomato, we can see how light reflects more strongly on one part, making the highlight brighter. This tells us that the skin of the tomato is slightly glossy. We can see where the midtones and the form shadow are. And down here, we can see that the tomato is not only affected by the main light source, but also by the light being reflected from the white floor. Below the tomato, we can see the cast shadow and occlusion shadow. Now, let's apply all of this to our coloring. First, I'll use some white to create the brighter part of the highlight. Next, I'll bring in the reflected light. I'm using a red that is lighter than my shadow, but not as light as my highlight. Then, I'll draw the cast shadow and the occlusion shadow underneath, plus some occlusion shadows in our illustration's nooks and crannies where light can't reach. We can use the same principle for the green leaves on top, highlights where the leaves face the light source, and shadows on the opposite side. And here we go! This is a fully shaded tomato. Now let's look at some other shapes. The leek is essentially a cylinder, but the broccoli is a more complicated shape, made from a collection of spheres sitting on top of a cylinder. Breaking shapes down into simple 3D objects always helps. I'll start with the midtones, add the highlights and then the shadows. Notice how the shape of each vegetable tells me how the light falls on it. You can go for the simpler or more realistic shading style. Both will create volume. Don't worry about absolutely nailing it. Just have fun and see how it transforms your colorings.